Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the Iwami in 2024. Should you get this coal battleship in 2024? Is it worth getting? Well, for 228,000 coal, it's not cheap, but I do think it's a very strong tier 9 Japanese battleship. This game here is a bit of an anomaly because we're going to do insanely well in random battles. This game is going to have 8 kills. Yeah, we're going to do some serious work. So strap in for that. I got more games for you to show you, don't worry. But my general philosophy around these secondary brawling battleships these days is wait for ranked, wait for brawls, where you can take advantage of the close range play that these ships are very, very good at. I just happened to get the one random battle game that allowed me to play close and do extremely well. But this is the thing you can expect more consistently in ranked and brawls. So this kind of fun can be had, just not consistently in randoms. That's going to be my, I guess, warning at the beginning of this video. Now, if you haven't heard of Iwami, you might be thinking, Japanese battleship, brawling, secondaries, what? Yeah, this is a very unique Japanese battleship. At tier 9 here, we get 8 410mm guns. They're a little bit worse than the standard Japanese 410 at this tier. A little less pen is the key here, and that's down to the worst shell velocity, I believe. So nothing too special here, but what we do get is some insane turret angles. 25-degree turret angles allows us to fire these guns, so we can stay very well angled. Now our secondary is getting us our first kill there on the Zeton. Means that, yeah, these secondaries are super powerful. I would say they're maybe the second best secondaries in the entire game, and that's pretty high praise for a tier 9 battleship. This ship, as far as the hitting DPM, where we try and take into account the accuracy of the shells alongside the DPM, with this third-party website, gives me its 5th best out of all the tier 9 to 11 battleships, only behind Schlieffen, Petrie, Navarin, surprisingly, another tier 9 battleship, and Admiral Yushikov. The only other ship on that list that can pen 32mm of armor is Schlieffen, and that's super important because that allows you to do full pen damage, and you don't have to rely on randomly hitting superstructures or just getting lucky with fires to do damage. These are very consistent secondaries at damaging battleships, cruisers, DDs, you name it. The accuracy is the same as Schlieffen, and it has the same pen as Schlieffen. It's just slightly worse hitting DPM. That's it. So you essentially bring those Schlieffen level of secondaries to tier 9 games on a ship that has 410mm guns with pretty good accuracy. It does struggle a little bit, as we'll see in a future clip after this one's over. It struggles with vertical dispersion. That's the Japanese gimmick where you have decent horizontal dispersion, but the vertical is just atrocious on these Japanese battleships. So anytime someone's broadside, you can expect to be missing low and high, which is a little frustrating. The Sigma, though, is 2.1, so it should be relatively accurate. And combined with these secondaries and the amazing angles on these turrets, it allows you to play very well angled to enemy ships. So you shouldn't be taking too much damage, although you do have to watch out where you push. I died very quickly a couple of times, so I'll show you that a little bit later as well. But overall, Iwami is a very strong battleship, and I haven't even mentioned that it's got torpedoes. These torps actually go 20 kilometers. There's a lot of funny tools with this thing, man, I gotta say. But 20-kilometer torps, 21,000 damage. They're spotted from the moon. They go very slow, but they're more zoning torps, I would say, when it comes to this ship. And you got to be very broadside to shoot them. They're actually on the stern of the ship. You'll see them there in a little bit once we get back out of the binocular view here to fire at this Fiji. I'm doing single fires here to just try and guarantee hits. These British light cruisers can accelerate rather quickly, so I don't want to just salvo fire into them here. And we get one Citadel with that second turret, firing our rear 2 turrets. Back turret, best turret. Yes, indeed, we do manage to finish him off. That's going to be 4 kills already. This game was getting out of hand, but a few kills quickly here, bringing us back into it. Look at that accuracy, man. That's the thing. The reload is extreme as well as the accuracy. There's our Kraken, and this time, getting a Kraken in a YouTube video on a Japanese battleship, I remembered to bring Yamamoto. So unlike, I think it was Yodo, where I somewhat recently got a Yodo game with 5 kills, I totally forgot to have Yamamoto, and that felt pretty bad. So I've been spending the doubloons to swap them over to whenever I'm playing a Japanese ship, just in case I get that Kraken. It's pretty fun, and that gives us a heal, as you can see there. It doesn't heal back any permanent damage, unfortunately, but it is a long duration heal, and more importantly, our reload is now going to be nuts on our ships. So that's really, really strong for the end of this game. Although going broadside to this Yumahari is probably not the best idea. Fortunately, we don't take citadels there, but we can take citadels. It's got a very exposed citadel. We heal back a little bit from that. A massive hit into him, actually. Very surprised by that damage. Seems a little inconsistent on the guns at times when I'm playing this ship. Don't worry, I did play both a main guns build as well as secondary builds. I'd probably just go with secondary builds and play it in ranked. That's going to be the most fun, but the main guns can do okay. But these turret angles are really, really powerful, man. It's so strong to just be so angled. 25 degrees, man, that's auto-bounce territory for basically any AP shooting at you. Unless you're against like a Des Moines or a Petro or something like that. Something with improved pen angles. The secondaries, though, don't all fire at that angle. That's something to be aware of. So if we're at 25 degrees, we can only get 4 of the 6 or so secondaries online at on one side. So that's going to be 3 of those 100 mil and then the 152 in the back corner there. And at least 3 of those 100 mil turrets can fire out to like 10 degrees forward. Wow, that's pretty good. And rear wise a little bit worse. So you do want to be angled towards the enemy team, I think, in general. Taking out the Yumahari there, that's going to be number 6. Couple more to go. This game's coming down to the wire. Decided to play a little more passive here at the back. Didn't want to just push in the open towards the enemy spawn. Just real quick to talk about the positioning here and decision making. I want to help my teammates deal with these battleships as they push in. They're going to be forced to either broadside to me or to the torpedoes from our Minigumo or Leningrad. And, well, there's a Benham as well. That's a very terrifying ship to deal with. And I didn't want to push the enemy spawn while just being in open water to that enemy destroyer. That's an easy way to lose this game. So focusing on the Lepanto for now, trying to keep our Leningrad alive. But I want to get close enough to get within a secondary range. Speaking of secondary range, I haven't mentioned that yet. It doesn't have the range of a Schlieffen or the German battleships, even though we do get that German battlecruiser, the premium line of the American secondary line like Ohio, Massachusetts, Georgia, that accuracy we get, which is really nice. The range isn't quite there. So we get 10.5 kilometers of range maximum. So we don't quite have that ability to reach out as far with these secondaries. And with our concealment being not as good as some of those battle cruisers, giving that really nice secondary range being 0.1 kilometers worse than your concealment, we can't quite do that here. So people know you're coming, but that's generally okay into ranked games. That's again where I would just want to play this ship. And if you're looking for a secondary brawler battleship for coal, which let's be honest, there's a few of them here, this is probably the one to get over the GK for sure, in my opinion. Much more unique, much better at its own tier, even if the random battles matchmaker is pretty bad these days for tier 9. That is something in the GK's favor, I suppose, but tier 9 matchmaker is pretty rough these days. I'm sure I don't need to explain it to you guys, but if you haven't experienced it recently, super ships are fairly common, and they do bring the tier 9s up into that tier quite a lot. And that's really difficult for a tier 9 battleship that especially wants to focus on closer range fights. Super ships tier is so passive. Tier 10 is pretty passive already, but super ships just take it to a whole nother level. They're so powerful at mid to close range and even longer ranges that you just can't get within those closer ranges. You die so quickly. Even to your own tier, you're going to die pretty quickly at closer ranges if you get caught in a crossfire, or if you're ending up against a team with a lot of overmatch. That's something here where we've got to deal with a lot of 32 mil armor. Now going broadside here to get these torps off, the angles aren't great, but they are nice to deal with that Lepanto, and our secondaries helped us get that Venom for a double strike here to end it. That is 8 kills, 267,000 damage. Insane match in the Iwami. So much fun, and really surprised to get this one. I will say, you may have noticed already that why is my main gun range so far? I was having a bad time up until this game with Iwami. It went a little better after this one, including this one and afterwards, but I think for about the first hour of me trying to play this thing, I got super ship games. I got absolutely crushed, doing no damage, never getting into range of anything. So I decided to run a build with main gun range, just to get the ability to shoot at things sometimes. And yeah, didn't need it in this one. I certainly would have been much better off running main gun reload or secondary gun reload. You could do either one. I think if you're playing a lot of ranked, you're going to want to run the full secondary build, honestly, just because the secondaries are that powerful. To end this game, though, our DDs did manage to finish off the John Bart, as well as both stay alive to clutch out the win. So huge thanks to both our Leningrad and the Mini Guma there for clutching that game out. And a very nice win to start with. Now, how much secondary damage do you think that was? 306 hits. They all penned 32 millimeters of armor. Almost 3k base XP, man. 2 away. Now we got to compliment the guys that helped us win. And 90k raw, and then another 21 from the fires. That's a lot. especially in randoms, man. I did not expect that game to happen. Super happy with that one. And now we're going to get to some of the less good portions of this ship. While these guns do have some nice characteristics to them, well, they're going to overpen cruisers a lot because they do have decent shell velocity and pen. And yeah. Yeah, a little frustrated in there. Hopefully our secondaries can either finish him off, or I guess I have them on the destroyer. That can be a good idea, actually, to just leave your secondaries on DDs. With this accuracy, they're actually going to do a pretty good job of dealing damage to these DDs, especially as that secondary accuracy spools up with manual secondaries. So not the greatest experience there, getting those overpens on that, what was that, San Diego, I guess, not in Atlanta. But I did want to show you one specific salvo from this game. The rest do seem relatively reasonable, but I think there was 1 or 2 against this Renown here within 12 kilometers that, oh boy. Well, you'll see. Keep in mind, this is an accuracy build. Our secondaries do not reach 10.5. They reach 9.2. And, well, yeah. You can get trolled. This ship will troll you alongside all these other secondary focused battleships that want to be at closer ranges. They just do not give them the accuracy. And that one was a combination of, honestly, let's be honest, that was probably just a bug of unlocked dispersion. But at a certain point, a bug is a feature, right? If it's not going to get fixed, it's just not going to get fixed, and you got to deal with it. And then the very next salvo, we land basically every shell and do like 15 to 20k into his angled ship, right? So it's just inconsistent, I guess, is the way we should put it. It's a little inconsistent. Nice thing about this gun build is that you should be landing more of those consistent salvos, like that second one, into a lot of ships at these closer ranges. What are those back turrets doing? Okay, yeah, a little bit awkward here for the guns, certainly. But the secondaries still will have decent accuracy, even if you don't take the secondary upgrade in the 3rd slot. You take your main gun upgrade in that slot, you still get a little bit of range and accuracy on the secondaries from that. And they're going to still do a very good job at these closer ranges. So if you're interested in playing the ship in random battles, I would probably recommend that, where you don't go full secondaries, you just go a main gun build, and then you take manual secondaries and secondary range on your commander build. That gives you a bit of a hybrid battleship setup. I'll show you those towards the end when we take a look at them in port. But a little bit of a rough game here. Our team's kind of just fully collapsed. But we should be finishing off this Renown 44. And just as I'm about to die here at the end of this game, these torps, man, these torps are pretty solid, I gotta say. They do a lot of damage and they go real far. So people might just not be expecting them, right? They just kind of show up and slowly hit your ship for like 20k. It's kind of funny. So we're going to shoot at the Zara here. He's forced to turn in a little bit, and we get a high caliber Confederate this game, which is cool, but, you know, we lost pretty badly, so didn't quite have enough battle impact here. But wait for it. Wait for it. There it is. Not quite enough to kill him, though, unfortunately. But pretty funny to have these 20-kilometer torps, I gotta say. And moving on to our second last game for you, I have one where my ship died very quickly towards the end, as we're going to see. The armor does not hold up that well, especially against higher tier opponents. It's really rough into tier 10s and especially super ships tier. But first, a couple surprises. Broadside Alaska taking a single citadel. One hit, one citadel. It's about as good as we can account for if we only hit one shell. And a little surprising there. As well as this broadside Soyuz at 13 kilometers. He's got a large citadel in that, sure, but when we're playing a ship that is generally secondary build with kind of intermittently poor dispersion, to get ourselves a nice salvo like that with a citadel in it, that feels pretty good, man. I think if you're looking for a secondary brawler battleship that has a little bit more characteristics of a accurate battleship or a battleship with decent guns compared to the Schlieffen line, where the guns aren't really that good. They're pretty weak 406s there, whereas these feel like reasonable 410s, just slightly worse than the 410s you'd find on an Azumo, for example, in Pen, as I've already mentioned. It's nice to have that option here. We're nowhere near as fast. We don't have the concealment of the Prince Ruprecht and the Schlieffen line there, but the guns being a little bit better, I think is very nice. And especially since this ship has better secondaries straight up than the Prince Ruprecht at its tier. Citadel's in on the Brisbane there. Not too impressive at these ranges, but still, those are shots that we have to hit. If we're going to have a battleship with decent accuracy, we have to hit shots like that. 7 kilometers, flat broadside, Brisbane, Minotaur. Gotta happen. And then the secondaries actually just help finish off the Brisbane right there, just because our guns didn't quite get them. Our teammates finished off the DD, and I'm feeling good here. I'm feeling really good. We've got a Georgia with us, behind us, Smolensk, Colombo. Let's turn in and push the cap. Unfortunately, I do eat the very, very predictable Brisbane torps. Why did he poke out from the island flat broadside, not shooting his guns? We will never know. No, it's just very, very obvious torps that I should have realized that I didn't, and lose a lot of HP, and more importantly, burn our damage control. That's going to be a bit rough. But I'm hoping to isolate on this Petro here, hoping that my teammates aren't just going to go around that island that they are currently going around. I realize here, little Incomparables back. Oh no. Petro's hitting us for 10k per salvo because of those improved pen angles. It's about to get rough. You're going to see how poor the armor can be on a ship like this. Damage control was burnt. At least we don't eat a big fire yet from Wisconsin or Petro. There's that overmatch from the Incomparable. There's the fires from the Wisconsin. There they come. And we're going to go down here very, very quickly. When I was on that corner, I was basically at full health. I want you to remember that. Sure, I ate a couple of torpedoes, but those guns, man. Incomp, Petro, Wisconsin killed me very, very quickly. All right, last game. What happens if you just full send? What happens if you just run a secondary build and you full send at people like you might in a Schlieffen? Well, you don't have a Hydro, first up. That is a problem. So we're going to have to deal with sub-torps here, and that's going to be a bit tricky. But other than that, it's actually not too bad at these pushes, as long as you don't have to deal with that 32 mil overmatch or a ton of HE spam. Here we have a Musashi on our flank, but maybe we can get close enough, or he gets too close to that island that he can't shoot at us. And the Clausewitz is pretty far away, so I shouldn't be too worried about the HE spam just yet. Just trying to stay angled at the moment. I will say the turret traverse is a little bit slow. So even though our turret angles are very nice on this ship, they're pretty slow to turn around. You don't have the 360 turret like you do on that German battlecruiser line, for example. So a little bit rough there. I think also at closer ranges, when we're using these torpedoes as almost a YOLO counter, or we get so close to the enemy ships that we want to torp them, having the Pommern torp position versus Iwamis is much better. Having them at the midship position rather than at the stern, it's going to be much better in those situations. So if you find yourself very close to an enemy Pommern or something like that, as an example, he'll probably be able to torp you far before you are able to torp him. Although the angles might be just enough that you can trade it out. Although, yeah, it's a little rough having them on the back of the ship. But they're nice there as a zoning tool. The ASWs aren't really much to write home about. They're pretty standard, so, you know, not going to do that much, especially when pushing into a sub like this. Very, very scary stuff. The best thing I can recommend if you're doing this kind of thing in an Iwami or any other battleship is to stay at maybe a 15 to 20 degree angle to where you think that sub is, especially if they have you pinged with homing torpedoes. And the torps are going to lose their homing ability within a couple kilometers of your ship. So when you see the torps coming, getting towards that range, 2 kilometers or so out, you can slow down and turn in, slow down and turn out if you're kiting. Kiting is much easier with this, by the way. And the torps should mostly miss, actually. It's pretty nice that that's a feature now with battleships. Unfortunately for cruisers and destroyers, the homing cancels much closer to their ships. So oddly enough, the homing torps are just so much better against the smaller targets that are supposed to be better at maneuvering. Yeah, subs don't make too much sense. Carriers neither. Unfortunately for us on the Iwami, we don't have the best AA either. You're gonna get crushed by a carrier as well. Secondaries helping us finish off the Colombo there. Not getting a ton of damage here, but I was impressed that we just managed to live. So, you know, an example where we die rather quickly, but this armor can hold up in the right circumstances. You just need to have, well, perfectly angled to sap. That's the key here, is a Colombo sap is just going to destroy you so quickly. Even if you're at a 15, 20 degree angle, it's going to hit super duper hard, where if you fully bow onto it, it's not going to be quite as bad. But the overmatch hurts a lot. The HE spam can hurt you a lot as well. So Clausewitz, very fortunate that he wasn't able to focus on us the whole time. A couple depth charges into the sub, doing some damage there. But Clausewitz a little too broadside. Yeah, there's a nice citadel to hit. And this was with a full secondary build. So the guns can surprise you when you're running the secondary build. They can do some relatively good damage. And as always with these secondary commanders, or these secondary builds, these secondary ships, just play them in ranked. If you want to have fun with them, just play them in ranked. These good games can happen in random battles. It's possible, but play them in ranked if you can. But I do like to do these videos in random battles because that's guaranteed to be available. So if you are looking at the ship, you know what it can do. Although I do think games like these are pretty rare where we get good secondary damage out of them. But at least we do have the other game modes like ranked and brawls often allow us to play some of these ships and play a little closer, guaranteeing a little more value out of those secondary and brawler builds. The other thing is, coming up in future patches, they're getting a playlist of arms race, airship escort, and convoy. I think those are the ones in a separate playlist, in a separate battle type. So that could be a fun option as well, but maybe that's something permanent where random battles is just standard battles, and then they bring in that as a permanent alternate game mode type. That could be cool, giving you an option to play these ships permanently in a mode like that. That could be fun. Not sure if they will, not sure how that event will even go because it's not in the game yet. But I'm excited to check it out in the future. As for the build here on the Iwami, this is how I went with it. Yeah, IFHE secondaries. You can run them without, but yeah, not having 32 mil pen is a little bit rough. They can still do good damage, and the fire chance is much better then, so you're relying a little more on fires. But as always, anytime I'm relying on fires, I feel like I'll just start complaining about RNG more, where anytime I can get, especially the 32 millimeter armor threshold, that's why I always talk about it when it comes to running IFHE or not. For the most part, I'm always going to take IFHE if it lets me pen 32 millimeters where I otherwise wouldn't, just because that's such a valuable, consistent source of damage at higher tier. There are certainly ships where that's a little bit questionable, but just as a personal preference, I just value that consistency a little bit more. And on these secondaries, certainly. Otherwise, Adrenaline Rush, and then getting an extra heal and concealment. That does leave us open to fire prevention. Like, we don't have fire prevention. I don't know. It's tough. There's so many skills you want to take to help you survive at close range without dying. We also want to upgrade your secondaries, especially their accuracy with manual secondaries. And then this is what I would probably run in a ranked game, a brawl game. Randoms if you want, but know that you're going to have a bad time 60% of the time, and you'll have an okay time another 2 or 3 games out of 10, and then 1 or 2 will work out for you. At least that's kind of how I view random battles. So then definitely go the main guns reload and accuracy, and that's a decent way to play a hybrid build into randoms and do pretty well. Armor wise, it looks okay. 32 mil bow, that's a little painful at closer ranges, certainly no icebreaker or anything like that, but the deck armor is 50, so at longer ranges you should be a little more immune to HE spam and Battleship overmatch. But upper belt 32, and then our side armor is not that good, 356 here. Fortunately, it is a bit of spaced armor here, although it doesn't work like black hole armor. At least that's not how it's worked, or how I felt it working. And then we have an above water citadel here as well. Not at the back, fortunately, kind of slopes off, but most people know to aim for the front here. If you didn't aim for the front, if you didn't know that, aim for the front and middle of Iwami, and that's where you're going to get the best damage into this thing. Above water, it does slope a little bit, but I mean, I wouldn't even call that turtleback. That is not angled enough, you know, compared to something like a Kurfürst, or I mean, even Palmer in here, just to show you an example. Look at how much more slope that is. That's what's going to keep you safe. That angle there to bounce the shells up, right? 150 there. It's just going to auto bounce the shells up and away, where Iwami angle is nowhere near enough. So you will take citadels when you're broadside. You should. I think I got lucky a couple times in this video showing broadside and not eating citadels, but you should be taking citadels broadside. Although when you're kiting, you do have a little bit of a, I don't know what you'd call it, stern icebreaker, but also a shot trap back here. So not some good, some bad, I suppose. But the secondaries are fun here, and the main guns aren't bad either. I gotta say, this is probably one of the better coal battleships to get. Not that there are too many great options in my opinion right now, and I guess we haven't had a new one for quite a while. So maybe there's one on the horizon coming. I don't know, but for now, yeah, Iwami's pretty good, but tough in random battles overall. Tier 9 matchmaker and just general high tier does not really support secondary brawling battleships that well. So thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.